Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to Testa and Neal. Keep it real right here on WWSU 106.9 FM. My name is Shea Neal. You're also, I already screwed it up. Come on. You can also catch us on our YouTube channel at WWSU 106.9. Wow. I'm Shea Neal. Allow me to hold my L, and while I do, you can talk to Parker Testa. Parker, how are you?
Doing good. That was a rough one. You've been pretty good so far this year, or not this year, but throughout the entirety of this show. But that was a rougher one.
That was pretty bad. That's gonna get me right on the SSI inside joke of the station. So, uh, uh, not taking enough W's to go on the party cruise, am I?
No, you're not.
No.
But there's plenty of time to recover.
You're right. There's plenty of time to recover, indeed. A lot of show to get into today. Very, very excited. Monty Williams did not win Coach of the Year, and that makes me very, very irritated. The Bucks got absolutely stomped by the Brooklyn Nets tonight. The Nets and Nuggets are in progress right now. We're going to wait until the end of the show to talk about that. Hopefully it's over by the time we talk about it. And then we found an article on MLB.com, one trade chip for every MLB team as we get closer and closer to the deadline. We might not hit on all 30 teams, but some of the more intriguing ones for sure. As you can see, the Cubs and Padres are playing in the background on my TV, but just a Reds fan loving to watch the Cubs fail, so I'm watching that. But also in hour number 2, we asked and you spoke. We're going to do MLB catchers on our tier list today. Parker and I had to go over a few names here, make sure we know every catcher on this list, but I think we're ready to go. And it's a little different today because yesterday's tier list, I created it, so I kind of knew what the rankings were. Today, I'm using a quiz that was made by, let's see what his name is. I should have probably figured that out. It is Brody. Brody made this for this website, and he ranks it in superstar, all-star, good, average, below average, and trash. And we have every team's starting catcher, so we'll get into that in hour number 2 as well. So a lot of show to get into. I'm excited.
I am too. Yesterday's show was a lot of fun. I think that hour number 2 was just a blast, and I can't wait to see what we dive into with going forward here with these tier lists. There's a bunch we can get into, so I'm looking forward to it.
And I mean, if we run out of sports to talk about, I don't think we're going to run out of sports. What the heck? Is that gone? I just turned and saw. Oh, it's foul. Okay. I just saw in the background the ball flying, but it's Jerks and Profar. I should have known it wasn't gone. But a lot. I mean, I think what's cool is if we do happen to run out of sports, I mean, we can do arenas, we can do jerseys, logos. I mean, we're not going to run out of sports tier lists for a while. But if we do, favorite breakfast cereals, best movies on Netflix. I mean, we can keep this rolling as long as we want. So
much. There's so much we can get into.
Best episodes of season 5 of Lucifer. Which ones belong in S tier? All of them.
Yeah. TV shows, movies, food. I mean, we could go down the list.
Core 9 orgs at Wright State.
Yeah. We're already in S tier. I mean,
WWSU is the only one that's in S tier. Sorry. Guardian UAB, if you're listening at home, you're A tier. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're very solid, but you're not.
You're close, but you're not on our level.
I don't think UAB has ever won best radio station in Dayton. Just saying. There's only one org that's ever done that.
Yeah.
And we did it twice. We were so cool. We did it back-to-back years.
Yes,
and we're going to do it again this year, too.
Yes, we will.
Three-peat. We're going for the three-peat. 3 times in 11 years. That's like a three-peat, right?
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
It's better than 3 times in 12 years.
We were rebuilding.
Yes, we were.
The last couple seasons, we've come into the season looking like the Sacramento Kings. And this year we came into the off season, the summer workouts. We came into training camp with a roster like the Brooklyn Nets, and everyone around the league is like, whoa, what happened to the Kings, man?
They're really good. What happened?
They were in the draft lottery like a year and a half ago, and now they have Kevin Durant.
Yeah, we're like the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
Very, very, like, not too great 2 years back, but now we're just, really good.
Yeah. We're like the Lakers before they got LeBron.
Right. Yeah. I turn and I see Shaq with sunglasses on my and headphones on my TV. It's like, Shaq.
Inside the NBA is the best show on television.
That's true. That's very true.
Chuck, Ernie, Shaq, and Kenny just kill it night in, night out.
Yes, they do.
So funny.
It's unmatched hilarity.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. All right, let's get into this. Like always, you can follow us on social media at WWSU1069. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, you can follow us on our personal Twitter accounts at Parker Testa and at ESPN Shea Neal. Parker, really quick, because I'm not sure how many people that are listening to this show are going to be here on Friday, or are going to be. I don't know what everyone's up to, but I got to do some work with our good friend of the station, Dylan Collison, today, and we made some hot cards. And how good do they look?
They look great. I can't wait to help or to be part of that and help give those out on Friday at this event coming up on Friday. So if like you were, I think we're about to say, if you're not busy on Friday, come see us.
Absolutely, we'll be at the Netter Center from 11 to 2. To be determined on where in the Netter Center we'll be, but we will be there. And come say hi. If you let us know you'll listen to the show, hey, we might hook you up with a free T-shirt. We might hook you up with a free maybe a gift card. We'll see. But we got some shirts to give away. We got some music to give away. So we got a lot of stuff. So make sure you come hang out with us. And really quick, just to entice you into coming maybe on Friday, let me show you what we're going to be handing out to everyone who does come to attendance. So really quick, I'm going to share my screen. So appreciate you hanging out with us as I awkwardly pull everything up. But how about this, Parker? What this?
Those look fantastic.
They do, don't they? It's the new modern WWSU red and black.
Yes.
That we're kind of looking towards. There's our social media. You can find it there. That's the front. And on the back, you have, again, a QR code where you scan that, you go right to our website, and you can follow us on social media. So we got you hooked up on everything. And like I said, you come say hi, you grab one of these, and you come and you let us know that you came here because of Keep It Real, or you came here wanting to be a part of the new era of WWSU. Hey, we got you with a free T-shirt.
Yeah, so we'll those look great. You and Dylan did a fantastic job working on those.
It was really Dylan. I can't take too much credit.
Yeah, but
basically what I had to say was, he was like, well, what color do you want it to be? And I'm like, red and black. And he's like, all right, I got it.
Yeah, but those look great, and I'm excited to see not only some new Raiders coming in, but maybe some familiar faces around on Friday afternoon. So looking forward to that, no doubt about that.
And absolutely, and I mean, if there wasn't reason enough for you to come on Friday, the one, the only, the legendary Parker Testa is back in Dayton for the first time in a month. So come see him. It's his only day in the city.
I don't know about the legendary. I haven't built enough.
I didn't say it was a good legendary. I guess I should have said infamous, shouldn't I?
Yeah, infamous is the right word for that.
But yeah, we got a lot to do. We're excited. But let's get into this with the NBA. The Bucks got steamrolled.
Yeah.
It was not pretty.
Not pretty at all.
As good as the Bucks looked in round one, they've looked just as bad in round two. Brooklyn's playing without James Harden, and that's what scares me, is that this Milwaukee team looks like they can't keep up with a team that doesn't even have James Harden. Kyrie, Kevin Durant have been great. Blake Griffin's really stepped up since that injury to James Harden. The Brooklyn Nets just look unstoppable right now.
Yeah, they do. And we thought it would be close, and this one wasn't. Not close at all. And it's crazy because we thought the Bucks were really good, and they are really good. They just didn't play well, and it sucks to see that, because I think the Bucks have the talent's definitely there, and they're I thought they would give the Nets a dogfight, and this was the furthest thing from a dogfight. It was really, just a good old fashioned butt whooping by Brooklyn.
Yes, it was. And I mean, there's plenty of time to turn this series around. They go back to Milwaukee. If they can defend home court, they can still tie this series 2-2, going back to Brooklyn. But the Bucks just played uninspired basketball today. Giannis only had 18 points. Chris Middleton's kind of struggled this series so far. It's a problem when your second best scorer behind Giannis is Brook Lopez. This isn't the Brook Lopez from the Nets 10 years ago. This is 36-year-old Brook Lopez. This should not be, a guy that you count on for 17, 18 points a night. This Bucks team just doesn't look like they match up with the Nets on the court right now. And maybe that's partly because they lost Dante DiVincenzo, but they still have Bryn Forbes. They still have, Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, Giannis, Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker. It's a good team. I mean, maybe they're not as talented as the Brooklyn Nets, but they should be able to hang with them. There's no excuse for the Brooklyn Nets to beat this team by almost 40 points.
No, not at all. We thought that the Bucks are really good, and they still are really good, but they struggled. Like we haven't seen this much of a struggle fest from the Brooklyn Net or from the Milwaukee Bucks in these playoffs yet. So hopefully this isn't a sign of things to come, because if this is a sign of what's coming, the Bucks are in trouble.
They sure are, and that's something that we kind of touched on last week, where we said, Mike Budenholzer versus Steve Nash. The coaching matchup is intriguing because Nash, obviously in his first year with the Brooklyn Nets, how much of it is him being a good coach? How much of it is him having Kevin Durant on the court, which doesn't hurt? I feel like, I could coach a team that has Kevin Durant on it and find a way to make the playoffs and win in the playoffs because Kevin Durant's that good at basketball. But Mike Budenholzer, at least in the first two games of this series, is looking like the Mike Budenholzer of the past couple of years, where he has a great regular season. The Bucks have a lot of hype coming into the playoffs, and then they just underwhelm.
Yeah, and this is they certainly didn't underwhelm in that first series against the Miami Heat. I mean,
they looked great against the Heat.
They won 4 games right in a row. But this is something that we really that Bucks fans unfortunately are accustomed to seeing, and that's they have a really strong regular season. They're up there with the best in the conference, and then they kind of drop off a little bit in the playoffs. But we haven't really seen it in the first round, but we've seen it here as we get further into the playoffs. That the Bucks tend to struggle the further you go into the playoffs.
Yeah. Let's briefly touch on this story between the Coach of the Year debate in the NBA. Game 3 obviously will be back in Milwaukee, I believe, on Wednesday night. I'd have to double check that, but either Wednesday or Thursday. Not Mike Budenholzer. Tom Thibodeau, New York Knicks head coach, wins NBA Coach of the Year. I don't want this to sound like I don't think Tom Thibodeau had a great season at the helm of the Knicks. Obviously, the Knicks were projected to win 22 games this season, and he got them to the 4 seed in the East. But I don't think Tom Thibodeau did the best coaching job in the NBA this season. I think that belonged to Monty Williams and the Phoenix Suns, being the 2 seed in a league as competitive as the Western Conference, and knocking out the defending champs. I know they vote on this before the playoffs, but knocking out the Lakers, and now going toe-to-toe with Nikola Jokic, the MVP of the league, and the Denver Nuggets. I feel like Monty Williams was robbed of this award. Even though, I have nothing against Tom Thibodeau. Congrats to Tibbs on being the Coach of the Year, but my vote would have been for Monty Williams for sure.
Yeah, mine would be also. I like he said, nothing against Tom Thibodeau at all. He took the Brooklyn Nets from a team that no one expected to do well, and he took them to the playoffs, and they performed well in the playoffs. Yeah, even though they lost to the Atlanta Hawks, who are looking very good right now. That's not to discredit anything that Tom Thibodeau has done. But Monty Williams deserved this award. He did, and he's led the Phoenix Suns not only this year, but what they did in the bubble last year was fantastic, and he's continued that into this year. The Suns are the number 2 seed in the West. They're playing very well right now. They're down by 7 or 8 right now to Denver, but this is a team that's very talented, and it's all a credit to Monty Williams. No one expected the Suns to be this good, and they certainly have. They've beaten expectations and then some.
Yeah, they sure have. I enjoy watching the Suns play basketball, and I think you're in the same boat. But just the way that they play, we mentioned this Nuggets and Suns series yesterday, and I said you've said on a couple occasions that you think Denver's the deepest team in the NBA, and that's a very valid argument. But I think the Suns, just what I've seen for the majority of the season, might be the most well-coached team in the NBA. So it's a really cool matchup because it's a team that has all the talent in the world against a team that's worked their tails off maybe more than any other.
Yeah, and this is one that a matchup that I think we all were looking forward to seeing if the Suns would ultimately beat the Lakers, which they did. So this is one that's going to be a lot of fun. Like you said, the Phoenix Suns are a team that are really strongly coached. One of the best coached teams in the NBA with Monty Williams at the helm there. So it's interesting going to be interesting to see how this team matches up. It's close as we speak right now, but it could go either way in this series. It really could with the talent that Denver has matched up against the coaching genius of Monty Williams. It's going to be a fun series for sure.
It sure is. Last thing here on NBA that I want to touch on here in hour number one before we dive into this, one trade chip from every MLB team ahead of the deadline. They were talking to Luka Doncic yesterday after the Mavericks got knocked out, and Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic in kind of their exit interviews. Kristaps said he's frustrated because he sees himself as more of an afterthought to Luka than a co-star, which I get when they traded for Kristaps. The idea was for Luka and Kristaps to be co-stars, but Luka Doncic is a top 5 player in the world right now. And Kristaps Porzingis just scored 16 points in a winner game, take all game 7. So I think Kristaps has a lot of nerve for saying that because, and I'm a Kristaps fan, so I don't mean for this to sound like, I think he's, a bad person or a bad player, but Kristaps knows he's not on the same level as Luka Doncic is. And at this point, if you want to stay in Dallas, if you want to try and win with Luka Doncic, you just got to accept the fact that you're Robin. You're not Batman anymore. Luka Doncic is Batman, and that's not changing as long as he's in Dallas.
No, it's not. And I see where Kristaps is coming from, and he has a right to be upset that he's not getting the credit that he thinks he should get. But
ask Kyrie Irving. It's hard to be the Robin in the NBA.
Right, and he's coming from a place in New York where he was the Batman for that next team, so he goes from that main role to kind of being like to put him in his words, an afterthought, and he is an afterthought right now in Dallas because Luka is that good. He's not putting up 30, 40, 50 points a night like Luka is. He's still a great defender and a great basketball player all around, but he's not putting up Luka numbers, and he's not as talented as Luka is. So he certainly should not be on the same level as Luka Doncic.
No, not at all. And Luka's only 22 years old. Luka turned 22 in February. This guy's still extremely young, and I don't think saying that you're not as talented as Luka Doncic isn't like an insult because there's 2 players, maybe 3 players in the NBA that are as talented as Luka Doncic, and it's Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and I don't know, maybe James Harden. That's about it. That's all I can think of. So saying you're not as good as Luka Doncic is not an insult. It's not like you're saying you're not as good as, Jay Crowder. It's saying you're not as good as Luka Doncic, one of the 5 best players in the league right now.
Yeah. It's like, comparing my cooking skills to, Gordon Ramsay. Right. It's absurd expectations.
Right.
So it's something that Kristaps has got to figure out that he's got to figure out how to be that Robin. There are guys who have figured out how to be the Robin to a Batman. Right. I think Kyrie's figured it out in Brooklyn. There are guys that Klay Thompson's figured it out with the Warriors. There are guys who know how to be that Batman to somebody, or that Robin to somebody else's Batman, I should say.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, it's like Kristaps right now. Kristaps is like a 2021 Ford Fusion. He's a solid car. He'll get you where you need to go. He's versatile. He does the job at a high level. But Luka is like a 2021 Lamborghini Aventador. Like, if you see a Ford Fusion and a Lambo in the street, you know which one people are going to flock to. You know which one's going to win the race. You know which one's going to be, getting all the ladies inside it. I mean, Luka's the Lambo. And that's not an insult because a lot of people would be very happy to have a 2021 Ford Fusion. But, there's right now in the NBA, there's 5 or 6 2021 Lambos, and Luka's one of them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about the fact that he's really good, and it's the main thing that Kristaps has got to do is he's got to embrace what his role is, because if you don't embrace it, you're just going to be miserable. Mm-hmm. And you I mean, I heard this all the time from little league coaches. You can either sit on the bench and make sure that the coach sees you and pout and complain that you're not the star, or you can embrace your role. And a lot of times when you embrace your role, you become a lot better of a player, and you start playing better than you did before, because you know what your role is and you know how to execute that role like you should. Absolutely. So there are guys that have embraced that role, and that's what KP needs to do there in Dallas.
Absolutely. And this is, just kind of throwing gasoline on the fire, right? And there's no any sort of traction to this. This is just something I read today, but 2 stars in the NBA that are kind of frustrated with the situation of their franchise right now: Luka Doncic in Dallas and Damian Lillard in Portland. We've talked about Damian maybe going to the New York Knicks. We've talked about Damian maybe going to the Lakers, maybe going to the Chicago Bulls. What if Luka and Dame team up in Dallas?
That team would be too good.
Imagine them in the playoffs, though, man. Like, Luka and Dame were the 2 clutchest players in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's been grumblings of the Knicks, there's been grumblings of the Lakers, but that matchup with Luka and Dallas would be killer. And if I'm Mark Cuban, I am throwing every dollar I have at Damian Lillard to come to Dallas.
Absolutely, I'm sure Mark Cuban's already one step ahead and already on a private jet up to Portland, but because Mark Cuban's just that kind of dude. But a lot of interesting headlines that's going to happen throughout the course of the next couple of months in the NBA. So excited to get into that. We'll talk more about the Nuggets and the Suns in hour number 2. We're going to try and wait for this game to go final. But as of right now, the Nuggets hold a slim lead over the Phoenix Suns in game 1. So we'll get back into that in a little bit. But let's do this, Parker. 1 trade chip for every MLB team. We're not going to be able to hit on all 30 here in hour number 1, but we'll hit on some of the big ones. And I'm going to start with the Baltimore Orioles, a team that's still obviously rebuilding. But this could be the year. I don't think they're going to get rid of John Means, who's probably their most valuable piece right now. But I think, he's their only solid pitcher. I don't think you get rid of that. But this could finally be the year that they get rid of Trey Mancini.
Yeah, it's possible. And especially with a team that's struggling like the Orioles are. Like you said, I don't think they get rid of Means because he's their one great pitcher that they have. And that's great in Baltimore Orioles standards. He's a great pitcher, don't get me wrong. He's just not as good as guys like the better starters in this league, guys like Kershaw, guys like, Woodruff, guys like Burns. But he's definitely the ace for this Orioles team. So, and Mancini is a guy that has, he's been a bright spot as far as in the batter's box for the Baltimore Orioles. And he's, with Means being on the IL right now, you got to find some capital if you're Brandon Hyde, and that's what the Orioles, I think, are trying to do. They're trying to find some prospects that they can work through, they can work with and make better, and I think that's what you're going to have to give up a guy like Trey Mancini to do that.
For sure. So Trey Mancini, like I said, would be the Orioles kind of guy. Um, Mike Elias, the general manager of the Orioles, has said that he views John Means as a long-term piece, but he's never technically said the same thing about Trey Mancini. So that'll be interesting to see. For the Tampa Bay Rays, lower level prospects. That's what they say. Obviously, the Rays have the best record in the American League heading into this weekend, and also the best minor league system in baseball with guys like Luis Campusano, Luis Patino from the Padres, and Wander Franco and Brent Honeywell. I mean, it's a nasty, nasty farm system in Tampa Bay. So they obviously have guys like Vidal Brujan, Josh Lowe, like I said, and they're not going to get rid of guys like that. But maybe they'll move a major league utility player like Mike Brasso or Yandy Diaz, maybe even Manuel Margot. But their system is so deep and so talented that they could realistically afford to part ways with high-end young prospects that other organizations might not deal away and still have plenty of players who would draw interest from clubs focused on building up their farm systems. The Rays are one of the smartest organizations in baseball. They always seem to walk away from a trade and get better. So whatever they do at the deadline, I mean, whatever moves they make, I assume that they see something in them because they always do.
Yeah, this is a team that I don't expect to make a lot of moves because they're already winning and they're already a great team, like as they are. But if they do make a move, if they do make a move, like you said, it's going to be for a reason. This is a team, like you said, that doesn't just make moves to make moves. There's reasons behind what they're doing, and Kevin Cash has his team in a perfect spot where they're just quietly leading the AL East right now. And this is a team that has the best record in baseball, and nobody's talking about them. And I think that's what Kevin Cash likes. So. We talked about Kevin Cash as one of the best managers in baseball as far as personnel and game management goes. And I don't see the Rays doing a whole lot here at the deadline, but if they do, it's going to be for a reason.
Let's get to the Red Sox. Excuse me. Wow. Michael Chavis is their pick here. The Red Sox are likely to be buyers than sellers this year, considering how well of a start they're off to. However, Chaim Bloom is taking a methodical approach to put the organization in the best possible place. The Red Sox aren't going to deal any of their top prospects in an effort to go for it. One player who may be expendable is Michael Chavis, who hasn't lived up to expectations in the majors and has spent most of the year at AAA. Chavis has plenty of raw power. He just needs to learn how to be more competitive against high fastballs. He can play first, second base, and outfield and got into tremendous shape coming into this season. He still could have untapped potential.
Yeah, Chavis is a guy who's very versatile. He's a lot like Kike Hernandez. He can play a few different positions. He doesn't play as many positions as Kike does, but he can play first and second. And those positions are certainly valuable, especially in a place like Boston where they're pretty slim at second base. So this is a team that also has it's been quietly a great team. Not a lot of people are talking about the Boston Red Sox, but Alex Cora has his team in a great spot. Like this thing says, I think they'll be buyers. They need to add a little to their pitching rotation, as well as their bullpen. So I think the Red Sox are going to be buyers at the deadline, especially when it comes to their pitching staff.
With the New York Yankees, this one's interesting because this is one of the top prospects. Obviously, the Yankees struggling to keep up with the Rays and Red Sox so far this year, but they have Deivi Garcia as their pick here. Deivi Garcia, in 8 regular season starts in his big league career, has pitched to a 5.27 ERA. However, a starting center fielder seems to be their most pressing issue at the moment, and then they put in parentheses Ketel Marte. Dangling Garcia would be a good way to entice opposing clubs to pick up the phone. Garcia is the Yankees' number 3 prospect, and general manager Brian Cashman has previously said that many teams are interested in Deivi Garcia.
Yeah, and Garcia is a guy who is certainly very enticing to a lot of these teams that maybe a team like the Red Sox who needs pitching depth. And I know Red Sox and Yankees fans both cringe at the idea of those teams doing business together, but it's not the end of the world if that happens for those fans out there. So, I think Brian Cashman previously that he's previously hinted that there are teams that are interested in Deivi Garcia. And we may see the Yankees be sellers here at the deadline. They're a team that they've struggled a bit to open the year, especially more than people would think. But the Yankees are the Yankees, and they're always going to find a way into the playoffs. They're always going to find a way to be up there and fighting for the division towards when we get into September and October. So. They could be sellers here and address some of the issues that they have with as far as pitching goes. But Davy Garcia could be a guy that we see sent elsewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to say this because I'm a big fan of this player, but there's really one direction I see the Yankees going. I just said one direction. There's one. I have a sister that's 2 years younger than me, so I thought about that right away. But there's one player that I think the Yankees attack this trade deadline. He's a center fielder. He plays for a really bad team on the West Coast. He's a switch hitter. He's a great player. I am a huge fan of him, but it makes too much sense. I think Ketel Marte is going to be a Yankee by the time the deadline hits.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I like Ketel Marte too, and he's going to be a guy
It
who
just makes too much sense.
right, and he's going to be a guy who, if you don't have interest in Ketel Marte, what's wrong with you?
Fact.
He's obviously had some success, a lot of success, and he's really good still. So there are I think the Yankees are going to be heavy suitors for Ketel Marte, which is very sad because I love Ketel Marte, like you said. But like you said, it just makes too much sense for the Yankees.
It sure does. Let's move on to the AL Central, and the Tigers have an interesting name here. Matthew Boyd. Is this the year that Boyd finally gets traded? He's eligible for free agency after next season. He's back to eating innings. He has a career best 3.86 FIP, and he's doing a much better job of limiting home runs. He's a better pure pitcher than ever, has a changeup, curveball, and fastball and slider. In a year where contenders need reliable pitching depth, the 30-year-old lefty Boyd is a sneaky good option.
He is, and like we said, he's got his stuff back, and it's really hard to do if you're a pitcher and you lose your stuff, whether it's fastball velocity or control on your off-speed pitches, you're going to struggle, and it's really hard to get that back. So I think Boyd's found it, and he throws a lot of he mixes his pitches very well, and he's brought his home run rate down, which is crucial in today's game. So I think Boyd is, I think the Tigers are going to be sellers, if anything, at the line because they've been sellers for, the last 5 years, it seems like. So, I think Boyd is just going to be another victim to that Tigers trade deadline selling onslaught, if you will.
We're going to get back into this in a second, but I just thought you'd want to know, Parker. The Suns are on a 16-0 run right now and lead the Nuggets by 5 now in game 1.
Yeah.
So how about that?
It's crazy. These playoffs have been lots of fun to watch, and it's for reasons just like that. Teams get down, you think they're out of it, and they can come back and fight for a win. And we'll see if the Suns can continue to make something of this run and win game 1 here.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get back into another one that I really like, and this is from the Twins. Nelson Cruz. If the Twins do indeed continue on their path towards selling at the deadline, which they will unless they go on an extended winning streak, they'll need to pivot from thinking as a possible playoff contender to retooling for beyond. Players on expiring contracts: Michael Pineda, J.A. Happ, Matt Shoemaker, Andrelton Simmons, and Hansel Robles. There's arguably no better trade chip than Nelson Cruz, who's posted 2 of the best seasons of his career for the Twins and has 10 home runs through 51 games this year. His value only is for American League clubs, but his 46 games of playoff experience and 2 runs to the World Series make him awfully appealing as a short-term DH commitment.
Yeah, he's got his power, and it's amazing. Guys that are getting older can still hit the skin off the baseball. Guys like Pujols, guys like Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz is doing it better than anybody. He's going to be a guy who's going to be enticing for other teams. I know the teams like the Oakland Athletics have been mentioned as potential suitors for Nelson Cruz. So we'll see where he ends up, if anywhere at all. Personally, if I'm the Twins, I don't want to get rid of Nelson Cruz because he's been very good for my team. So, but if I'm an opposing GM, I'm looking at Nelson Cruz as a real target for me at the deadline because he can still, even at 40 years old, he can still hit the lights out of the baseball.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the AL West, and we'll start with the Angels. Rhys Iglesias. If the Angels fall out of contention, they could look to trade closer Rhys Iglesias, who's headed for free agency this offseason. Iglesias had a rough start to the year, but he's been pitching much better recently. The Angels remain hopeful that they'll be able to remain in contention, but with Mike Trout out until July, there's a chance they could sell, and Iglesias could be an attractive piece for a club looking for a closer or late inning reliever. Obviously, Parker, every team that's competing is looking for bullpen help every year at the trade deadline. Iglesias might be one of the better relievers that's available, though.
Yeah, he is. And when we did our All-Star game picks, Rhys Iglesias was one of my picks for the reliever in the American League. So the Angels have, they still have a chance to be in contention. It's slight, but there's still a chance for the Angels. But like this thing says, with Mike Trout out and for a while, they could get rid of him and pick up another reliever, or maybe a bench bat that they could use to really spark their offense. But everyone who watches Angels baseball knows that their downfall is their pitching staff. So I think they're going to use Iglesias as some trade bait to either get a low level starter or another guy in a relief role who can propel them to maybe some late inning magic and give them a few wins.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the Mariners. I like this one a lot. Mitch Haniger. The optics of it would not be great with the fan base or within the clubhouse, but obviously the Mariners have Kyle Lewis, Jared Kelenic, Taylor Trammell, a lot of really talented young outfielders. Still have Julio Rodriguez down in the minors. Haniger is a huge reason why Seattle has been close to 500, but he also represents their most valuable commodity on the trade market. Contending teams in need of an all-star caliber bat, the White Sox, Padres, and Braves come to mind, might be willing to part with higher level prospects that could be tempting for the Mariners front office.
Yeah, it's possible. This Haniger's, definitely one of the more attractive options here at the deadline. Because it's for a Mariners team who got off to a hot start but have struggled recently. So we'll see if the Mariners decide to ultimately sell him to another team here, and maybe bring in some prospects. The Seattle's another team with a prospect with a farm system that's very talented. So they certainly have the depth behind them to replace Haniger. But we'll see what the Mariners ultimately decide to do, and maybe send them to a team like an all-star, or I'm sorry, a team that's needed of a outfielder and a pretty good bat. Like this thing says, the White Sox, Padres, and Braves all are in need of another bat who can also play the outfield, and Haniger fits that role perfectly.
Last team in the American League that we're going to do is the Texas Rangers. Joey Gallo. Gallo is the obvious answer. He's come up in trade rumors before, and the Rangers are struggling at this point in the season. Gallo has hit only 207 this season, and it's unclear if anybody will offer a package that's worth Texas's while. But Gallo will be a free agent in 2023, and he is obviously one of the most intriguing bats in the market this offseason. I think the Yankees' primary target is going to be Ketel Marte. But obviously the short porch in right field in Yankee Stadium, they love lefty hitters, like guys like in the past, obviously they have Judge and Stanton, but guys in the past like Mark Teixeira, guys in the past like Nick Swisher, Hideki Matsui. They love lefties that hit bombs on that short porch. I don't think you could have made a better hitter, a power hitter for Yankee Stadium in a lab than Joey Gallo.
No doubt about it. Gallo is just, if you ever just see him play, he's a cheat code if you play MLB The Show, but
Nice.
he's really good, and he hits the skin off the baseball, especially if you see like some clips of him in batting practice. He's hitting these baseballs to, there's no fifth deck in these stadiums, but if there was a fifth deck, Joey Gallo would hit the home run to it because he is that good, and he does have that much power. So he's going to be an interesting, trade bait for a team like the Rangers, who, they haven't been the greatest, but another team that could be sellers here at the deadline.
Let's move on to the National League. We got about 20 minutes left here in hour number one. Starling Marte with the Marlins. The Marlins are trying to stay afloat with key players injured, but if they continue to fall in the standings, their veteran outfield trio of Adam Duvall, Starling Marte, and Corey Dickerson could become trade pieces. All three can become free agents this season, and Marte has yet to test the market in his career. He is a former All-Star and Gold Glove Award winner with a coveted combination of speed and power. I totally agree. I like the Marlins. I hope they succeed, but if they're still sitting in fourth place here in about a month, which it's likely that they are, Duvall, Marte, and Dickerson could all be on the move. And I think Marte is the best of those three for sure.
Yeah, he is. And another guy who is an outfielder who's going to be a guy that's going to be on the move possibly here. Another guy is similar to Haniger, similar to Ketel Marte in Arizona. Guys who are going to be looked at as possible trade bait here as we get closer to the deadline. This time of year is always fascinating to see who's going to get moved where, which contending teams are going to be buyers and look to bolster their lineup or their bullpen going into the playoffs. So Marte could be one of those guys as far as if you need a great base runner. Starling Marte certainly fits that mold. He's been an all-star. He's been a Gold Glove center fielder. So another guy who is going to be looked at to be on the move here as we get closer to the end of the month.
Nationals have Max Scherzer as their pick. Scherzer is dominating in his 14th season ahead of entering free agency this winter. He turns 37 in July. He has a 2.22 ERA and a .82 WHIP. He's 5-4 on the season. His resume speaks for itself, but he has a say in where he will pitch. He's a 10-5 player with no trade rights. But if the Nationals continue to struggle like they've had so far, Scherzer could be maybe the best starting pitcher on the market.
Yeah, it's possible, and this is one that I wholeheartedly disagree with. If I'm Mike Rizzo, the Nationals general manager, there's no way in hell that I'm trading Max Scherzer. He's still even at 37, he's really good. And I know you can get, there's a guy who you can get, a bat if you need it, a bat, maybe even two bats for Max Scherzer, but he's still Max freaking Scherzer, and I ain't getting rid of him, no doubt about it. I'm not getting rid of him if I'm Mike Rizzo.
Yeah, I have a tough time believing that they're going to part ways with him as well. Here's an interesting one. I like this one. The Phillies, Rhys Hoskins. Bryce Harper said a couple weeks ago that he believes Phillies president Dave Dombrowski will add the necessary pieces the Phillies need to contend for their first playoff appearance in 10 years. But the Phillies exited Sunday 28-30 and 4 games behind the Mets in the NL East. They will need to play much better over the next several weeks for Dombrowski to trade anything from a thin farm system. If the Phillies fall from contention, they could try and shake things up and trade Hoskins. It would be a bold move in that Hoskins has been one of the best hitters in baseball since August 2017 when he made his big league debut. He's also a face of the franchise and team leader, but Hoskins could help the Phillies acquire some pitching depth, which they sorely lack. That's one that I hadn't thought of. I don't know if they do it because, like that says, Hoskins is kind of like one of the faces of the Phillies, but they make a good point. The Phillies need pitching, and getting rid of a guy like Hoskins could get them that pitching.
Yeah, it's possible. And this is another guy who, like he's kind of like Scherzer, a guy who I really don't trade unless I have something that I can't refuse. And whether that's could be relief help, or help with in your starting rotation. This is a guy who, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball, like this thing says, since 2017. But he, like this says, they need pitchers, and if you get an offer that you can't refuse, I might send Hoskins to another city if I can get a high or quality starter for my return.
Yeah. For the Cubs, Craig Kimbrel. Cubs president of baseball ops Jed Hoyer has expressed confidence that the front office will have the financial flexibility to add at the deadline. The reality remains that there are more than a dozen players who could potentially hit the open market, and making it possible that he tries to thread the needle between contending now and planning for the next few seasons. Obviously, their big ticket trade chip is Chris Bryant, who's playing at an MVP level while moving between 5 positions. But Kimbrel, the Cubs have once again an elite stopper that could impact plenty of clubs. The veteran closer has an option for 2022, but with a bullpen that has looked very deep and talented, it's possible that Kimbrel could be a way to acquire top-tier prospects while also not waving a surrender flag on the season in terms of contention. Hoyer has an intriguing puzzle on his hands given the landscape of his roster, but Kimbrel could be a way to acquire talent, but also, get rid of a guy on an expiring deal.
Yeah, and this is one that another guy. This is like 3 in a row that I don't trade him unless I have to get something to get a return that I would really like, and would really benefit my team to the best of their ability. The Cubs are interesting to me because they're still really good, and I mean I have trouble believing that even if they get a guy and send Kimbrel away, who are you going to replace Kimbrel with? And that's a tough question. You know, he's had a tough couple of years recently, but he's pitching very well right now here so far this year for the Chicago Cubs. So another guy for me that I don't get rid of unless I absolutely have to.
All right, this next one is one that I don't like. It's Nick Castellanos for the Cincinnati Reds. It says this only happens if the Reds fall out of contention. They are still in the race in a weak division like the NL Central, only 3.5 games out of first. But there would be reasons to move Castellanos should the situation arise. The right-handed slugger is having the best year of his career, leading the National League in average and is second in OPS only to his teammate Jesse Winker. He has a second opt-out in his 4-year, $64 million contract after this season. For somebody who's playing like an MVP thus far and who is represented by Scott Boras, the odds of him exercising free agency are high. Cincinnati may have to consider that heading into the deadline.
Yeah, this is one that I know you don't like, but
I don't think they're going to get rid of him. I think they know that he's going to opt out and become a free agent. But, I mean, the way he's playing right now and the way that he's impacted that clubhouse, I mean, I think they try to find a way to keep him in Cincinnati as best they can.
Yeah, if this is really all up to Castellanos. If he feels like that he's going to have success in Cincinnati, and knowing the Reds, they're not going to put anything around him. As far as they got Winker and they got Castellanos, and we've seen flashes from guys like India, but this is a tough situation for the Reds front office, and I think they don't trade him also, but if they somehow find a way that they can get a decent return for Castellanos and that won't hurt them a whole heck of a lot, I think they pull the trigger.
The only way I think the Reds trade Castellanos is if they get Jesse Winker to agree to an extension. But I don't think Jesse Winker is going to agree to an extension in the middle of the season. I don't think that's going to happen until the offseason. I think that the Reds' priority is going to be keeping Winker over keeping Castellanos, but I think they'd like to obviously have both of them. So I just don't see them parting ways with Castellanos with Jesse Winker not being a sure thing yet. If Winker was under contract for the next 6-7 years, I could maybe see it. But right now, they got to make sure that they have one of those guys at least moving forward, if not both.
Yeah, and I think if you had to pick one of those two guys, you got to pick Winker.
Winker's younger, and I just feel like Winker's got a higher ceiling. I love Nick Castellanos. He's a great player. He's a great leader. But Winker's still only 26 years old. I mean, Winker's got 2 or 3 more years of growing still.
Yeah, and this is a Reds team who is, they're notorious for making bad moves. They're notorious for getting their fan base all excited about something and then just blowing it completely. Yep. So we'll see what they ultimately decide to do. They're one of the more interesting situations for sure.
All right, let's get to the NL West, our final division here. Dodgers, number 1 prospect, Keibert Ruiz. The Dodgers won't actively shop Ruiz, but the team is trying to repeat as World Series champions. They could make a splash by adding Ruiz to a deal for help at the deadline. With catchers Austin Barnes and Will Smith on the active roster, there's no clear path to the majors for Keibert Ruiz. The Dodgers could decide to stick with the depth, given that Ruiz is the next man up if any of them have to miss time. But if they feel like the player coming to them via a trade could take them over the top, adding Ruiz would make a lot of sense.
This is another team that, for me, They don't trade him unless they can get something that's going to help them. And I think personally, what the Dodgers really need help with right now is their bullpen. They need guys that are going to help, late in games that aren't Kenley Jansen. So Kenley's been good this year, but he can only do so much. So there are guys that they need to add to their bullpen. So like this thing says, Barnes and Will Smith are the two guys for the Dodgers right now that alternate time behind the dish. So there are clear. There's no, like this thing says, there's no clear path for Kybert to make his. He's made his debut already, but he's not going to be an everyday starter in Los Angeles with the Dodgers. So yeah, unless the Dodgers can get something for him that's worth sending him away for, I think he stays put.
Yeah, I agree. All right, two more that I want to hit on here in hour number one. First one for the Giants. I don't think this one's going to happen at all. But Kevin Gausman, they say the Giants are looking more like buyers than sellers, obviously, following their unexpected rise to first place. But if they decide to change course, they could consider dealing from their elite starting rotation. Gausman, DeSclafani, Cueto, Wood, and Sanchez will all be eligible for free agency this offseason. Gausman's the most attractive trade chip given his consistent dominance this year. But if the Giants sustain their success in the ensuing months, they'll probably opt to hold on to him and give the club a chance to continue its playoff push. I get the reasoning, I guess, between Gausman having, the highest value of his career right now. But the Giants are 15 games over 500. Maybe they don't hold on to first place, but they're going to be in playoff contention, it looks like, for the majority of the season. And you do not let a guy who's pitching as well as Kevin Gausman is right now leave when you're in the middle of a playoff push.
No, you don't. This is one that they're stupid if they get rid of him. To be quite honest with you, as good as the Giants are right now, and as good as Gausman's been, you don't get rid of him. And this is another one that I think is like Scherzer. You don't get rid of him unless you have to, unless you can get something that's really worth your time, unless you're really stealing somebody's, unless you can really get deep into somebody's pockets. So I don't think they do it personally, but in this day and age, you never know.
No, you don't. And I guess we've seen crazier, but I don't think that. Like I said, I think maybe the Giants, if the Giants want to, bolster maybe their bullpen or get another bat and need to trade a starter, they could maybe trade Alex Wood or Aaron Sanchez or maybe even Anthony DeSclafani. But Gausman's the dude you got to hang on to, because if you don't win the NL West, you're going to be in a wild card game, and you could be playing Aaron Nola and the Phillies. You could be playing Brandon Woodruff and the Brewers. You could be playing Jack Flaherty and the Cardinals. You could be playing Yu Darvish and the Padres. You could be playing Jacob deGrom and the Mets. There's a lot of dominant pitchers you could be facing in a one-game wild card, and you're going to need Kevin Gausman for that game.
Yeah, you will. And there's no doubt that you need pitching depth is so important in today's game, because you got to have guys that can go 9 innings, or I'm sorry, not 9 innings, but you need to have the quality guys for the entirety of your game, because hitters are just hitting the skin off the ball right now, and that's today's baseball, and it's all about launch angle and getting exit velocity and getting as much power off the bat as you can. So you need to have guys that can miss barrels of bats, and pitching depth is so important right now. And I think unless you can get a few quality guys for Gausman, I don't think you get rid of them.
No, I don't either. And our final one here is the Rockies, Trevor Story. You saw this one coming, I think. But interim general manager Bill Schmidt was predictably close to the vest when asked if Story will be staying in Colorado. He said, not necessarily. We'll see what happens. We are not at that point. But with the Rockies a long way from contention, a deal is still logical, with the possibility of improving their pitching depth, finding a top-notch young player, and improving their catching. Story is expected to return Tuesday from a right elbow injury. It's not as if Story is an unknown. He's one of the best power-hitting shortstops for several years, and he's had incredibly bad luck with hard hit balls this year, but expect heavy scouting traffic. The Rockies aren't expected to make a move until after the All-Star break, but with John Gray now nursing a right forearm injury, Story is the Rockies' biggest chance to score big, although there are some chances that smaller deals will address some needs.
Yeah, this is one that I know you're pushing for the Reds to get, Trevor Story. Like I said, I've said it. We'll say it again. It's not happening.
It is happening.
Um, yeah, this is one that I think the Rockies are headed for the basement, and they're going to unload everybody they can before they get to the bottom, and that's going to be Trevor Story ultimately in the end. I think Bud Black is not far behind him. There's going to be guys that are sent packing, um, and there's going to be this Rockies team is no other way to put it terrible right now. And if they get rid of Trevor Story, the one shining bright spot they have, and they haven't had him because he's been injured, it's going to be interesting to see who he goes to. And there are teams that need a shortstop. Teams like the Reds, not happening again.
Pretty sure it is.
We've had this talk already.
We'll have it as many times as we need to have it until you realize that Trevor Story is going to be a Red.
I'll let you. I'll let you hold on to that pride, but this is one that the Rockies are inevitably going to get rid of. Bud Black, and like I said, most of their great players, and which isn't very much, to be honest with you. It's like Story and Charlie Blackmon, and that's it. But yeah, I think Story isn't going to be there for very much longer.
Wonder if they'll trade Bud Black to a contending team to be their bench coach in exchange for a prospect.
It's possible.
Fire sale, baby. We'll give you our manager for your third best pitching prospect. Okay.
I guess that's a good deal.
Right? I don't know. All right. Well, that's it for hour number 1 here on Keep It Real. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on WWSU 106.9 FM and on our YouTube channel, WWSU 106.9. We're just saying, we're chilling. Hour number 2 coming up. We're going to do a catcher's tier list for every single starting catcher in the MLB. You all voted, I should say, and we will do the one that you wanted to see, and you wanted to see MLB catchers, so we'll save NBA for another day. But we'll get into that, and then we'll also have an update on Nuggets and Suns. A lot still to get into in hour number 2. But Parker, any closing thoughts here in hour number 1?
It's been today's segment or yesterday's segment with managers was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to hour number 2 in this catcher segment.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to step away for just a few minutes. When we come back, it is hour number 2. Make sure you follow us on social media at WWSU 1069, at Parker Testa, at ESPN Shea Neal. And if you're not on our YouTube feed right now, head on over to our YouTube feed because you can follow right along with us. You'll see our cameras at the top of the screen. You can see us doing stupid stuff while we do this, but you can follow right along. You can see all the catchers that we're ranking. You can see where we put them, and you can play along with us at home. Send us a screenshot of your tier list. Let us know what we did wrong. Let us know what you would change. But we'll get into all that and much more in hour number 2. Keep it real. Keep it locked. We'll be back in just a few moments. Hour number 2 of Keep It Real with Testa and Neal. I am Shea Neal, alongside with me, Parker Testa. How are all of you? We appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Tuesday. Parker, the Suns just won game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals, 122-105 over the Denver Nuggets. So what a comeback for the Suns. They trailed a lot in that first half, but in that second half, they showed why they're the 2 seed, and they get a big-time win in Phoenix and take the series lead.
Yeah, they do, and it was a fun one to watch. And we sat here and we talked about the comparisons between these two teams. The Suns have the better coach in Monty Williams, but the Nuggets have the deeper team. I'm not going to say better team; they have the deeper team. The Suns proved that they were the better team tonight, and they proved that they were the 2 seed for a reason. They get a big win at home here to open up the series.
They sure do. All right, well, let's get into our tier list today. Make sure we have enough time to get through all of it. I'm going to be straight with you all right off the bat. I don't know catchers as well as I know managers, so I might be struggling a little bit more today than I was yesterday. But I will share our screen for our YouTube feed here. All right, so here we go. Again, this was made by Brody. This was not me, but this is a 2021 MLB catchers tier list. We have 6 tiers here: superstar, all-star, good, average, below average, and trash. And we have every single starting catcher here in Major League Baseball. Parker, we started with the AL East yesterday. You want to start with the NL East today?
Let's do it.
All right, well, I think that brings us to the best catcher in baseball then to start right off, and that's the Philadelphia Phillies and JT Realmuto. Obviously, the Phillies not the best team in that division, but Realmuto is an absolute stud. He's an unbelievable athlete for a catcher. He's a great defender, great pop time, great arm strength, great bat, hits for average, hits for power. He's a 5-tool player, and he's without a doubt the best catcher in baseball. So, I mean, obviously you get an opinion here, but I think you're going to agree with me. JT Realmuto belongs in superstar tier.
He does. He's definitely, he's the best catcher in baseball. He's up there with, some of the best that there is in baseball. And Realmuto certainly, he's one of the great, better, he's one of the better, catchers when it comes to being at the plate. As far as batting goes, but he's a wonderful defensive catcher. There's no doubt about it. So he certainly belongs in superstar tier.
Yeah, he sure does. Our second catcher on this list is going to be James McCann of the New York Mets. Signed a 4-year contract with the Mets this offseason. He had 2 really good years in Chicago, but overall for his career, he's a strong defender, but he's always been kind of lacking in the hitting department. He's got a little bit of power, but he's always been kind of a 220, 230 hitter. I'm going to put him in average. Maybe that's a little harsh. Maybe he's good. But for me, just like a lot of catchers on this list, good defense, but not the hitting that I'm looking for to be a top-tier catcher. So James McCann's average for me.
Yeah, this is one that, the Mets aren't, as good as everybody thought they would be. But McCann has been, I think better than people think. He's not, he's not among the league's best, but he's not overly great, but he's not terrible either. So he certainly belongs right in that middle in the average spot, does McCann.
Jorge Alfaro with the Miami Marlins. I had a lot of expectations for Jorge Alfaro, especially when he got traded to the Marlins in that deal for JT Realmuto. But, I mean, he's another guy. Great arm strength. He's a good defender. He's very athletic for a catcher. He's got some power, but he's never really put it all together. And unlike James McCann, who's had a couple strong seasons, Jorge Alfaro has never really taken that next step. So maybe I'm being a little harsh tonight, but I'm going to put Jorge Alfaro, even though he's a great athlete, in below average.
Yeah, this is one that, it's like you said, high expectations kind of gave him, the bit of an underwhelming performance was kind of what he's brought to the table. High expectations are often really difficult to live up to. Alfaro's been that guy where he hasn't lived up to the hype, if you will. So he's not as good as McCann is. He's on a worse team than McCann is. So he goes in that below average tier for me as well.
2 more catchers here in the NL East. We'll do our next one will be Travis d'Arnaud with the Atlanta Braves. Darno, he's a great hitter. He's a good game caller. He's a good framer. He has not a great arm. That's always been kind of a knock on him due to some injuries in the past, but he's got a great bat. He hits for average. He hits for power. He's been the Braves' best catcher since Brian McCann. So he's going to go in a tier above James McCann. I can't put him in the all-star tier just because he's a little inconsistent at times, but he's very strongly in the good tier for me.
Yeah, for me, he's in that good tier as well. Because the knock on him is he doesn't have a great arm, and when you're a catcher, you need to have a great arm. So for me, Darno is as good as he is at the plate, and as good of a game manager as he is behind the plate. The arm is a big knock for me, and that's why he's in the good tier for me.
And our final catcher is Yan Gomes in the Washington Nationals. Gomes, a great defender. Gomes has had his moments of being a solid hitter in the past. He hits only about 10 home runs a year. Decent average. He's kind of met everything he does, and that's why I think I'm going to put him in Met tier with James McCann in average. Yan Gomes, he's had, his better days are behind him, but he's still a very serviceable starting catcher, and I have him in the average tier.
Yeah, he's a guy he's been around a long time, and he like you said, his best days are behind him, but he's still a really a pretty consistent guy for Dave Martinez there in Washington. He's not a great hitter, but he's not completely atrocious either. So he's a good defender. Somewhat average at the plate, so he totals out to be average for me also.
All right, let's move on to the NL Central. I'm going to start with Yadier Molina. Yadier Molina, I hate this guy more than I hate a lot of people. But he leads all National League catchers in RBIs this year. He's been very, very good. I did not mean to drop him in Superstar, but he's been very, very good. Obviously, one of the best defensive catchers of all time. It's no joke, or it's no surprise, no secret, I should say, that his best days are behind him. But he's still performing at a very high level. I'm teetering between all-star and good. I'm going to put him in good because I don't think he's going to make another all-star team in his career, which is kind of what I'm thinking of for all-star. But he's at the top of good. Yadier Molina is still a very, very good player.
Yeah, I mean, I know you don't like him, and a lot of people don't. But I still love watching Yadi play. He's even at 38, 39 years old, however old he is now, he's still gunning people out of second base. You think people would know not to run on Yadier Molina at this point? Even at this point in his career, he's still really good. He's a really great defensive catcher, and he's not the hitter he was, but he's still an average hitter. So he's in that good column for me as well. But at his best, I'd put him as a bottom level all-star guy. But like you said, based on the all-star votes now, I don't think he'll make another one like he said, so he's in that good category for me also.
Cool. For now, let's do Omar Narvaez with the Milwaukee Brewers. He had a really tough first year with the Milwaukee Brewers last year, but he's been a lot better this year. He might make the All-Star team this season. I'm not going to put him in the All-Star tier because he's still an inconsistent defender, and he's only really had one good year with the Brewers so far, but he also, for me, is going to go in good tier. He's one of the best hitting catchers in the league. Hits for about a 280 average, has a little bit of pop to him, and his defense has gotten a lot better. He's got a good arm, and he's gotten a lot better behind the plate. So Omar Narvaez now a pretty solid catcher.
Yeah, he is, and he's actually surprised a lot of people with how good he's been. He wasn't expected to be as good as he is right now. Like you said, it's possible that he'll make the All-Star team. But a bit of inconsistency on the defensive side of the baseball was the knock on him. He's pretty good at the plate. He plays well. He draws up good at bats. But the defensive inconsistency for me is what puts him a knock below the All-Star level.
Yeah. For sure. And now our next one. This one, I may come across as biased on this one, but it's Tucker Barnhart and the Cincinnati Reds. I was thinking about putting Tucker Barnhart in average, but I'm going to put him in good. He's gone 2 Gold Gloves. He's one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, and he's finally drastically improved his offense this year. He's hitting 275. with an OPS of about 770. He's one of the best catchers in the league at doubles. He's hitting for some power. He's driving in runs. I think Tucker Barnhart, improving on the offensive side of the ball is what makes him now an above average solid catcher, because we already knew he was an elite level defender, and now he's an above average offensive catcher too. So I think he's climbed to this good tier for me.
Yeah, he's certainly, he's had his Gold Glove years. We all know how good of a defensive catcher he is, but the offensive improvement is what's blown him out of the water this year. He's been great. No, there's no other way to put it. So I would put him a step above spacing on his name. The guy right next to him.
Narvaez,
yes. My gosh. It's late at night, folks. I apologize about that, but
I agree with you in some capacity. I think Barnhart's better right now than Narvaez is right now. But in my opinion, Narvaez has a better higher ceiling, and that's not Tucker Barnhart's fault. It's just Tucker's older. But I think that they're both solid catchers. I think if I had to pick one right now, I'd pick Tucker because he's more consistent, and I can count on Tucker Barnhart every day. But if you asked which catcher I wanted over the next 5 years, it's probably Narvaez.
Yeah, and certainly Tucker has still got room for improvement. He could still add to his defensive game. There's still room for improvement as far as batting average goes. But he's been as good as he possibly can ask for, and he's been as good as he can hope for. So Tucker's in that good column for me. I would put him a step above Narvaez. I understand your point with the higher ceiling on Narvaez, but right now experience plays a factor for me, and Tucker's got that for sure.
For sure. Let's do Jacob Stallings and the Pittsburgh Pirates. I like Jacob Stallings a lot, actually. He's a very good catcher, in my opinion. He's a great defender. He's got a lot of power. He's still improving. He's still very young. He doesn't hit for the highest average. He hits about 260. But with a little bit of pop, 260 average, he's a decent defender and still very young. I'm going to put him in average for now because I don't think he's as good as d'Arnaud or Yachty or Tucker yet. But he could very easily be in the good tier by the end of the year. I think the Pirates don't have a lot to root for outside of Brian Hayes, but Jacob Stallings is a really solid young catcher.
Yeah, he is, and I like Stallings a lot. He's on a team that's atrocious. We all know that, but he's one of the few bright spots with the team that's not good. Brian Hayes is one of those guys also, as well as Adam Frazier. But Stallings certainly he's made a name for himself there in Pittsburgh as one of the league's rising stars at the catcher position. So, I like Stallings a lot. He's not as good as, like you say, he's not as good as Narvaez and d'Arnaud and Tucker Barnhart, but you could argue that he's better than guys like Yan Gomes. So, I like Stallings a lot. He's an average catcher for me as well. It's just unfortunate that he's on a bad team, because if he was on a better team, like Coach Sogard said last week, hitting is contagious, and if he's on a better team, you might see his batting average kind of creep up a little bit. So he's in that average tier for me as well, but he's certainly one of the league's rising stars.
Yeah, and then I just realized how good the NL Central's catchers are. Where Stallings might be the worst catcher in the league, in the division, and he's still league average, maybe even a little bit better. William Contreras is his brother. Wilson Contreras with the Chicago Cubs. He's going to be my first in the all-star tier. Absolute cannon for an arm. Great defender, has really good power. He's one of the Cubs stars, and there's no doubt about it. He's one of the best catchers in the league. I can't put him on superstar tier. Honestly, Parker, the more I think about it, Real Muto might be the only one I put in that superstar tier, because I think Real Muto deserves his own tier. But William Contreras is an all-star or Wilson. I keep saying William. Wilson Contreras is an all-star caliber catcher, really good defender, and he's got a lot of power, and he's still really young. So for me, definitely all-star tier.
Yeah, he's really damn good, and there's no other way to put it. This Cubs team got off to a slow start, but Contreras is one of the guys that's kind of helped dig him out of that hole, and he's been really good for a while now, and he's certainly one of the bright spots on this team for David Ross. Excuse my terrible voice crack right there.
It's
But
okay. Our recording software actually kind of bugged out a little bit, so you kind of got saved.
um, but Contreras is one of the bright spots for David Ross, and he's certainly one of the league's best. I mean, I put him in this All-Star category as well. I think it's a very good chance that he makes the All-Star team this year, along with a few other few more of his teammates. But Contreras is definitely one of the league's best behind the dish, and he's like you said, he's not up there with Rio Moto because he deserves kind of he's his own spotlight, if you will. Kind of like Jacob deGrom is in New York right now. But Wilson Contreras definitely one of the league's best, and he's in that All-Star category for me.
Yeah. I lied. I'm gonna put one more catcher in the superstar tier. I just realized, but he's coming soon. Moving to the NL West, Buster Posey. I'm not gonna lie. This time about a year and a half ago, I thought Buster Posey was rapidly declining. He's had an unbelievable year this year, hitting I believe like 315. He's got his power back a little bit. I'm gonna put Buster in All Star because he's gonna make the All Star team this year. And he's been one of the Giants' best hitters. Much like a lot of other guys on that team, he's found a second, revival of his prime. And right now, Buster Posey's playing like an all-star catcher. So for me, he's an all-star tier.
Yeah, and it's really surprising because in recent years, like you said, it looks like he was on the decline of his career, and a lot of people thought he was coming close to retirement. But he's proven this year that he's not done. He's not even close to being done. He's played very well this year, and he deserves to be in an All-Star game, in the All-Star game this year. I think he will be in the All-Star game this year, and that's why he gets to be in this category because he's hitting the lights out the baseball, and he's certainly helped the Giants, who are one of the league's best right now as far as record goes. So I like Buster Posey a lot, even though I'm not a Giants fan. I really like Buster Posey right now, and he's playing very well and deserves to be in this tier.
He sure does. Let's do your team's catcher, and that's Will Smith with the LA Dodgers. I'm going to put Will Smith in good. I think he's one of the higher ones in good on this list, up there with Yachty. I think Will Smith has a very, very bright future. He obviously hits the ball very well. He's a good defensive catcher. He has a lot of versatility. He can play second base and third base too, which is really weird. But a very young player, and I would probably put him in All-Star if he played a little more consistently. Obviously, he kind of splits time 50-50 with Austin Barnes. But he's got one of the best offensive catchers in the league already, and he's still got plenty of time to improve his defense even more. So Will Smith, one of maybe the youngest, I should say the brightest young star at the catching position in baseball.
Yeah, he is. And like you said, the consistency is a knock for me also. I like Will Smith a lot. It's not me being biased. He's one of the team's best power hitters. If you need a home run in a spot, you might look to Will Smith for that. But he's certainly one of the league's rising stars as far as defensive catchers go. He's a bit inconsistent, and like you said, he splits time with Austin Barnes behind the plate. But he's certainly on the up and up as far as stardom in baseball goes at the catcher position.
He sure is. All right, our third catcher in this division is Carson Kelly. Carson Kelly has been kind of mediocre in his career after that trade from the Cardinals to the Diamondbacks in the Paul Goldschmidt trade. He's had a really good year this year, though. He's hitting like 270. He's gotten on base a lot. And he's driving in runs for a really bad Diamondbacks team. I'm tempted to put him in good, but I can't put him in the tier of Will Smith and Yachty and Dartno quite yet. I haven't seen quite enough. So I'm going to put him in average, but much like Stallings, I think he's trending up.
Yeah, he is. And, we've seen him, he's had some vast improvement from his St. Louis days. So this is a guy who he's another guy who's on a bit of a rough team, if you will, in the Arizona Diamondbacks, but he's certainly a bright spot for Torey Lovullo down there in Phoenix. So I like Carson Kelly a lot. He's going to be a guy that I'm looking forward to have some major improvements here in the years to come. So I like Kelly as well. He's in this average spot for me also, but I'm certainly looking for him to move up to good, maybe even all-star here in the years to come.
Yeah. Okay, 2 more catchers here in the NL West. Let's do the Padres and Austin Nola. Austin Nola is a pretty good hitter. He's very versatile. But I'm going to put him in average because he's not a great defensive catcher. They obviously play him for his bat. Catcher's not even really his primary position. He just plays there because there's really nowhere else the Padres can put him. He's a good hitter, but his defense could be improved, and that's why I have him at average. I think Austin Nola is a serviceable guy, but he's not what you look for in a long-term catcher.
Now, Nola's a guy who defensive baseball is really important, and especially at the catcher position. And if you lack that, you're gonna struggle. And this list is based on defensive talent and also how well you do it at the in the batter's box. And Noah's certainly one of the better hitting catchers in baseball, but he struggles on the defensive side of the baseball, which gives him a knock for me as well. So I would put him in the average category as well. I think he's a little bit better than Carson Kelly right now, but we'll see how Kelly improves. And certainly Noah's a guy who in San Diego he kind of gets overlooked, but he's certainly a talented offensive catcher. The defense just needs to be improved for me as well if he wants to kind of bump up a little bit in these categories.
Yeah. Our final catcher in the National League is Elias Diaz with the Colorado Rockies. Parker, I don't think I'm a mean enough person to use the trash tier here tonight. So I'm going to put Elias Diaz in below average. He's not as good as Jorge Alfaro. He's not a very good catcher. He's probably going to be one of the worst ones on this list. He's not a great hitter. He's a decent at best defender. He's really just taking up a roster spot for the Colorado Rockies. He's not a good catcher short term. He's not a good catcher long term. If I had, I feel like some people who know me would disagree, but I feel like I do have a little bit of a heart, and I don't want to put a guy in a trash tier. But Elias Diaz is about as close as I'll come to putting a guy in a trash tier.
Yeah, I would actually put him in that trash tier, and I think I'm meaner than you are, Shea, right now tonight. But the Rockies aren't good, and I will continue to bash the Rockies until they prove to me that they can win at least in some sort of capacity, because they're not going to. I mean, Diaz, like you said, is just kind of a guy who's just around. And why he's around, the Rockies is probably one of the only teams he can play on and actually start for. So Diaz for me is not good. He's not good for the Rockies, and I would actually put him in that bottom tier.
All right. Well, like I said, maybe I'm just in a good mood tonight. I don't know. Let's get to the AL East. I'm going to start with the team that's in first, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays and Mike Zunino. Zunino, very strong defensive catcher, but he's always struggled to hit for average. He's got some power, but he just really struggles with consistency. And because of the expectations that he's had in the past, being the third overall pick, I'm actually going to be a little bit harsher on him than I am with guys like Yan Gomes and Carson Kelly and Austin Nola and stuff like that. I'm going to put Zunino in below average. I think he's a strong defender, but he's really underwhelmed in his career with that lack of production at the plate.
Yeah, I mean, I like Mike Zunino. I'd put him in the average tier. He's on a Rays team who has the best record in baseball right now. And I don't think that's not for nothing. So I think Zunino is a better player than a lot of people give him credit for. I understand the expectations were a bit high on him, and he hasn't lived up to those expectations. But personally, I would put him in that average tier.
All right, well, let's move on to Christian Vazquez and the Boston Red Sox. I like Christian Vazquez a lot. He's one of the best defensive catchers in the league. He also hits very solidly, about 270 average with some power. He's definitely one of the best catchers in the American League, and I'm going to put him in the all-star tier.
Yeah, I like Vazquez a lot too. Early on, he was a guy who a lot of people didn't know how he was going to do. A bit of an unknown, but he's flourished into a guy who's one of the league's best. And he has the potential to make a couple all-star teams. I don't know if it's this year, but certainly down the road, he's going to be a guy that we're going to see on the all-star list. as we get closer to the All-Star break, because he's a guy who he's certainly Boston, one of the bright spots for a Boston team who's been pretty good and surpassed expectations. So I like Vasquez a lot. He'd be in the All-Star tier for me as well.
Gary Sanchez. I'm going to be a little hard on Gary Sanchez here. Obviously, what he's capable of with the bat, he's a superstar. But I'm putting him in average, Parker, and that's because I think personally he's one of the worst defensive catchers in baseball. He's horrible at blocking the ball. He's got a great arm, but he's always struggled behind the plate to the point where they benched him for Kyle Higashioka last year in the playoffs. And he hits a lot of home runs. Yeah, he's got a great bat when he's on, but he might be the most inconsistent player on that Yankees roster. And because of that, your best ability is availability, your best, and he's been injured at times in the past too. But for me, the most important character trait in a baseball player is consistency, and Gary Sanchez does not have a lot of consistency. So for me, it balances out. He's average.
He's average for me also. He's not a good defender, like you said. And he's a guy who, I think Aaron Boone likes him, and I think he has a soft spot for him because Aaron Boone was a catcher. But I'm not a Yankees fan. I'm not a Gary Sanchez fan. He's not a good player. He occasionally, he'll occasionally hit a home run, and that's about the only pretty cool thing that Gary Sanchez does, because he's not a good defensive catcher, and he bats like 140 otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go in that average tier because he's on a good team. And he's pretty close to that below average tier for me, Shea. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I just don't get, and I'm not trying to, round all Yankees fans into one stereotype, but I just don't get why I see Yankees fans on Twitter all the time see his stat line of hitting 208 with 14 home runs and, 16 errors behind the plate, and they think that's one of the best catchers in the league. Like, I know I'm a Reds fan, and I know this is going to sound biased, but the national media and national writers and Yankees fans are always talking about how good Gary Sanchez is. But personally, 10 times out of 10, I'd take Tucker Barnhart over Gary Sanchez.
I would too. I have that's not me being biased. I'm not a Reds fan. I'm not a Yankees fan by any means. And it's not me being a Yankees hater. I just think Tucker Barnhart's the better player, and I think if you know baseball, you would agree that Tucker Barnhart's the better player right now than Gary Sanchez. So I'm with you. I think Gary Sanchez is one of the worst catchers in baseball. But he's on a good team. I think that's why he gets more credit than he deserves, really.
And then our final team in the AL East is going to be Danny Jansen and the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm sorry, I forgot the Orioles, but Danny Jansen and the Blue Jays. Danny Jansen, he's okay. He's got some good power. He doesn't hit for a high average. He's a decent defender. But for me, I can't put him higher than guys like Alfaro and Zunino. So for me, he's below average.
Yeah, he's the Blue Jays are interesting to me because they have guys who definitely get a lot of credit and deservedly so. They have a lot of guys who are really good. Guys like Vladdy Jr., Bichette, Springer, Hyun-Jin Ryu, guys that are really good players. But Daniel Jansen is he's on the average list for me. He's not better than Zunino. So yeah, I'm with you. I think he's got to be in that below average tier.
Okay, and then our final catcher in the AL East, I should say, is Pedro Severino. I like Pedro Severino a little bit more than I think most people do. He's got a pretty good bat. He hits about 240, 250. He's got a little bit of power to him. He's got pretty good athleticism. He's an average catcher behind the plate. He's still pretty young. He's one of the Orioles' better players by default because they're terrible. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him at the end of average.
Yeah, I'm a Severino fan also. I think he's one of the better catchers in this division. I think he's better than Gary Sanchez, to be honest with you.
I'd agree.
He's a good player, and he's a bright spot for an Orioles team, like you said, that's not good. So I'm a Severino fan. I still think he has room to grow, and he's in that average tier for me as well.
All right, let's move on to the AL Central. We're going to start with the only other player I'm putting in the superstar tier with JT Realmuto. It's Salvador Perez in the Kansas City Royals. Salvi is an absolute stud. Hits for power, hits for about a 260 average, which is really good for a catcher, especially with the power he supplies. And he is an absolute wizard behind the plate. Great arm, great game calling ability. Has won 6, 7 Gold Gloves. Parker, I lost count of how good this guy is behind the plate. He's one of the best catchers in the league. He was JT Realmuto before it was cool, and he's a superstar for sure.
Yeah, this is a guy who I absolutely love as well. I'm not a Royals fan, but it's hard not to like a guy who hits as many dingers as Salvi Perez does. Um, if you tell me if I have to pick between three guys to start for my team, it's Realmuto, it's Salvi Perez, and it's Wilson Contreras. So these three guys are really good, and Salvi. He's older, but he's still one of the best in the league at that position. So, Salvi Perez for me would be in that superstar category also, strictly because he's played high level baseball for a really long time.
Mm-hmm. Our next player in the AL Central is going to be Roberto Perez in the Cleveland Indians. Roberto Perez, one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. He's inconsistent at the plate. He's had years where he's hit about 250 with about 15, 20 home runs. He's had years where he's hit about 210 with only about 10 home runs. I'm going to put him in good because of his ability on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's very similar to what kind of Tucker Barnhart was before this year. But I think he's in that same category as guys like d'Arnaud, Narvaez, and Barnhart. So I think Roberto Perez is in good tier for me.
Yeah, this one's tough. I mean, he's a really good defensive catcher, like you said. But there's got to be but the inconsistency at the plate is what kind of knocks him off for me a little bit. I put him in the average tier personally. As good as he is as a defensive catcher, the inconsistency at the plate bothers me a little bit, so I put him in average.
All right, let's move on to the AL Central has some really interesting catchers. But let's move on to Yasmani Grandal. Grandal, he was drafted by the Reds. He's hitting like 206 this year, Parker, but he still has like a 380 on base percentage. He's definitely the best catcher in the league at drawing walks. He's still a great defender behind the plate. He's still got some really good power. I can't put him in All-Star because he's hitting 206, but I'm going to put him at the top of good. I still think Yasmani Grandal is a very solid catcher. And if he wasn't hitting 206, I'd probably put him at the end of All-Star. But he's still, I think, in my opinion, a top 5 or 6 catcher in the league.
Yeah, I think so too. Grandal is really good. I still think even at 38 years old, I still think Molina is better than him. But I like Grandal a lot. The inconsistency at the plate is something that it can be addressed, but he's certainly one of the better defensive catchers in baseball. I'm a Grandal fan, so he's in good category for me also.
And for me, I'm willing to forgive his inconsistencies at the plate a little more than other guys because he draws so many walks. So when Yasmani Grandal hits 220, it's not that big of a deal because he still gets on base at a 360 clip. When a guy like Gary Sanchez hits 220, he doesn't draw that many walks. So there's a big difference between Grandal's 220 and Gary Sanchez's 220, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's they're vastly different because Sanchez strikes out a lot, and Grandal doesn't do it. He strikes out certainly more than most guys, but he gets walks at a higher clip than most guys do.
Right.
So Grandal certainly a better. He's more disciplined at the plate, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to the final catcher of 2 more catchers in the AL Central. I can't count tonight. Wilson Ramos. Wilson Ramos is a guy that's obviously had a really strong career in Washington. He was even okay for a couple years in New York. He still is okay in terms of batting average. He hits about 240, 250. Doesn't have as much power anymore, only about 8, 10 home runs a year. And he just doesn't he doesn't have the same athleticism behind the plate that he used to. So I'm going to put him in average because I don't think he's worse than Gary Sanchez. But we talked about guys like Narvaez and, Carson Kelly and Stallings trending up. Wilson Ramos is trending down.
Yeah, he is. He's another one of these guys who his best years are behind him. He's still playing great baseball. Don't get me wrong. It's really hard to still be competitive at the major league level, like Ramos has been. But he's certainly on the down. He's certainly on a downfall. As far as his better days are behind him. But he's one of the bright spots on a Tigers team that's not very good. So
No.
I like Ramos. He's better for me. Still better than Sanchez. He's not quite as good as guys like Gomes and McCann.
No, he's not. I agree. I think that he's towards the end of C tier for me. But let's get into a guy that I really like a lot here to end the AL Central, Mitch Garver. This guy's very, very interesting. I think he has the potential to be an all-star catcher just because of how good his bat is, and he's also a strong defender. But he's inconsistent at the plate. He has insane home run power. He has hit 280 on his best years, but he also has hit 220. So I'm going to put him in good because of what he brings at the plate, along with strong defense. But if he could be a little bit more consistent, I think he's an all-star caliber catcher.
Yeah, I mean, I like Garver a lot. He's certainly a really good offensive catcher. And he's been a bright spot for Baldelli for a while. But it's going to be difficult for Garver to kind of work out the kinks, and that's what he has to do if he wants to pop into that all-star caliber talent of play. He's in that good category for me also, but not quite on the same level as guys like Smith, Grandal, and Molina.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to our final division of the night, and that is the AL West. I'm going to knock out two that I think are pretty easy right off the bat. Max Stassi with the Angels. He's not absolutely abysmal, but he's a below average batter. He's average behind the plate. He's below average as a catcher for me.
Yeah, for me as well. I mean, as good as rough as the Angels have been, and I'll continue to say that it blows my mind that they're not very good right now. But Stassi's on the lower end as far as talented catchers go in this league, so he'd be in below average for me also.
And then another one on this list, Jose Trevino. A very small sample size in the majors, but so far only hitting about 230. A good throwing arm, but he's only average behind the plate defensively, so he's another guy that I'm going to throw in below average as well.
Yeah, Trevino. This is another one of these teams similar to the Angels that they've struggled, and one of the few bright spots on the team, like the Rangers, has been Trevino. So he's below average also, but he's certainly a guy who has the he has the potential to be better.
Tom Murphy with the Mariners. He's a really strong defensive catcher. He only hits about 215 average wise. He's not a good hitter, but I'm going to put him in average because I don't think he's worse than Wilson Ramos. And I think that he has decent power. He's not a guy that's going to hit it for a high average. I think the Mariners know that. But he's a very strong defender. And I think his ability on defense puts him in average, even though he has below average plate skills.
Yeah, this is one that's interesting to me because he's on a team that the Mariners are very streaky. He's not a great offensive player, but I think he still has the potential to work out the kinks and kind of bring that average up a little bit. So if he can work out the kinks of his swing and kind of get on base a little bit more than he has been, I think he'll bump up into this. He's not as good as guys like Starling and Gomes, but he certainly has the potential to be that level of to play that level of baseball. But I like him, but he certainly has his own kinks to work out.
Yeah, he sure does. We get to end on a bang here, Parker. Sean Murphy, the Wright State kid. I'm going to put him in good. He's only hitting 222 this year. Only a 230 hitter for his career, but he's got some really good pop. 17 career home runs. He's got 6 home runs this year, 31 RBIs in just 162 at-bats. So he drives and runs. He has a career OPS of 786, which is really strong for a catcher. And he's only 26 years old, so he's still got room to grow. But I think I can't put him below guys like Garver and Roberto Perez and even Tucker Barnhart, because I like Tucker Barnhart as a Reds fan, but I mean, Sean Murphy's ceiling is way higher than Tucker Barnhart's for sure.
Yeah, and we've seen flashes of how good Sean Murphy can be, especially late last year. He was really a hot name among all of baseball because he was hitting the lights off the ball, and he had some great defensive moments. So he certainly has a higher ceiling than guys like Barnhart, and I would argue that he certainly has the potential to be as good as guys like Grandal and Darno, and maybe even guys like Vasquez and Contreras. He has the potential to be really good, and we'll see if he can tap into that potential as he gets further into his career.
Our final catcher on this list, Martin Maldonado. Maldonado for me, I like him because he has good power, and he's one of the best defensive catchers in the league. Great at calling a game. Obviously, Garrett Cole loved working with him for many years in Houston. And he's got an outstanding throwing arm. But I have to put him in average because he's hitting 163 this year, and he's only a 215 average for his career with a 642 OPS. He just does not get the job done at the plate enough for me to put him in good tier. I like him a lot, and if he was an average hitter, I'd put him in good tier because of how good he is on defense. But he's really just not a good hitter, so I have to put him in average.
Yeah, I like Maldonado. I think more than most because he's certainly shown flashes that he can be really good defensively, but he just can't hit the ball, and that's something that it's going to be a knock on you for sure. He has at the plate he has Gary Sanchez numbers, and he has some pop in his bat and some power like Sanchez does, but he rarely hits the ball, and it's something that as a catcher you got to do. And defensive baseball is more important than offensive baseball when you're a catcher. We see a lot of times catchers struggle offensively, but they don't struggle to the point where they're hitting 163. So if Maldonado can work out the kinks of his at bats and kind of produce better at bats, and the batting average is going to struggle. If you can't hit the ball, you're not going to have a good batting average. But if you can kind of improve your OPS and draw walks, similar to what guys like Grandal do, your value is going to shoot up for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, well, that is our tier list for all the catchers in Major League Baseball. Once again, this was absolutely spectacular. I had a blast.
It was. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
This could end up being one of our better ideas on this show. This has been a lot of fun. I like the direction we're going with baseball to start things off. So we'll do another poll tomorrow and let you decide what you want to see. But I'm thinking we can continue with positions and do first base, or we can do stadiums, or we can do logos. So three baseball topics, but we'll let you pick which one you want to see. So we'll do that. But this has been a lot of fun so far, and we hope you're enjoying it as much at home as we are here, because this has been really fun to kind of debate back and forth. And I know they're kind of longer segments. They end up being about 40, 45 minutes long, but hopefully they're interactive enough where it doesn't feel like you're just dragging on for a while.
Yeah, hopefully us sitting here talking all for an hour and doesn't bore you too much. I think that if you all can get involved, how you can get involved, and you follow us on Twitter, find us on Twitter, or that's how you vote on these segments is put out a Twitter poll. So make sure to vote on those and let us know what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm, no doubt about it. We still have about 10 minutes here left in the show today, a little less than 10 minutes. So really quick, let's break down this game between the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns. What a comeback from Phoenix. Trailed for much of that first half, really even into the third quarter. Went on a 16-0 run to seize control. and they delivered. And we talked about how important it is to win on at home in the playoffs, and it looked like for a while that Denver was going to be able to steal Game 1 on the road, but Chris Paul and Devin Booker stepped up, and a great start to this series for the Phoenix Suns.
And I think they needed it. They after that grueling series with, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Suns needed to get off to a hot start. We talked about, how Monty Williams was robbed of Coach of the Year by Tom Thibodeau, and that's not me saying that Tom Thibodeau didn't deserve it, because he certainly did, but I think that if a guy deserved Coach of the Year more than anybody, it was Monty Williams. But like you said earlier in the show, uh, the Suns are the better coach team, but the Nuggets are the deeper team. I'm not saying they're the better team, but they're certainly a deeper team. And the better team tonight was the Phoenix Suns, and they proved it tonight. I'm sorry. Chris Paul played very well. He had 21. Devin Booker had 21. DeAndre Ayton had 20. How about Mikal Bridges, though? He had 23, 5, and 5 in 34 minutes played.
Bridges, I'll tell you what, man. There's a lot of people that were kind of shocked because I saw an article last week that said the Suns are going to let Chris Paul walk because they're going to give max contracts to Bridges and Ayton, and build around Bridges, Ayton, and Booker, which I don't think is a bad idea. But everyone talks about Chris Paul and Booker and Ayton, and deservedly so. But Mikal Bridges is one of the better 3-and-D wings in the league that not a lot of people talk about. I mean, he is really, really, really good, and he's still only, I think, 23 years old.
Yeah, he is. And this isn't to discount what the Nuggets did tonight. They played well. They were in it for most of the game, but it just seemed like it was too little, too late from the Nuggets tonight. Millsap off the bench had 9. JaMychal Green had 10. Facundo Campazzo had 14. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I'm probably not, and I apologize. But Jokic wasn't on the top of his game like we've normally seen him. He only had 22 tonight. But Aaron Gordon had 18, as well as Michael Porter Jr. had 15. But like I said, it seems like just a little bit too little, too late for the Denver Nuggets tonight.
It did, and Chris Paul was spectacular. 21 points, 11 assists, but really put the game away. 14 points in the fourth quarter, and he did not miss a shot. Went a perfect 6 for 6 from the field. Booker, obviously the most talented player on the Suns. DeAndre Ayton, maybe the most dominant player on the Suns. Chris Paul is the leader of this team, and they wouldn't be anywhere near where they're at right now without the leadership of Chris Paul.
Not at all. And like you said, he was money in that fourth quarter. He didn't hit or didn't miss a shot in the fourth quarter. He hit a big shot to go up, I think, by 10 or 11 with like 8 or 9 minutes left in the game. But Chris Paul has been, certainly the veteran that a lot of these guys look up to. And, Devin Booker's entering into that, veteran status for some of these younger guys. Also other guys like Jay Crowder certainly have some experience, but there's nothing like the veteran experience of Chris Paul because he's played at a really high level for a really long time. So Chris Paul's really been important to the success of the Suns, and I think that's going to continue here as we go into this series.
I agree. I think it's not a coincidence that every team Chris Paul plays for does better when he's on the court, obviously. I mean, a couple of years ago, the Rockets were up 3-2 on the Golden State Warriors in that year that they had Kevin Durant, and they won it all. And the Rockets probably would have knocked them out if Chris Paul didn't get hurt in that Game 6 and miss Game 6 and Game 7. So I think a lot of people forget about that because they're like, the Warriors had Curry and Durant and Klay Thompson. Nobody stood a chance. The Rockets might have knocked that team out. And that says a lot about Chris Paul. It says a lot about James Harden. James Harden's obviously a very gifted basketball player, but that says a lot about Chris Paul and the leadership he brings to the table. He was great. And last year, that Thunder team last year had no business being in the playoffs at all. And they made the playoffs because of Chris Paul and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And Chris Paul, everywhere he goes, his leadership shines through. He's not going to average 25 points a game, but he's going to average 12, 13 points a game, 8, 9 assists a game. He's going to be really efficient, and there might not be a smarter player in the NBA than Chris Paul.
No, and especially how good he's been for as long as he's done it for. He was in New Orleans for a while, and that's where he got his start to his career. And then he was with the Clippers, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, but now it seems like he's brought the Suns to a whole new level. He really has, and he's certainly that veteran experience, that that bridge between Monty Williams and the rest of the team, if you will. So, and that's really important to have that chemistry, not only among your team but with your coach, coach and the players, and that leads all the way up to the top, and the ownership and the front office. So, and it's all a credit to what Monty Williams has built there. He's built a heck of a culture, and it seems like Chris Paul fits that culture perfectly.
Yeah, it sure does. And it's cool to see the Suns succeed. They really haven't been all that good since obviously the days of Steve Nash, Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire. So it's been a minute for Phoenix fans, but it's good to see them get to enjoy some Suns basketball for the first time in what feels like a long time. So Suns get a big win in game 1 tonight. At the time of recording this, I mean, I guess we could say it's Tuesday morning because it's 1:12 in the morning. But we appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Tuesday. Whether it was on YouTube at WWSU 1069, whether it was on our station 1069 FM, or you're just hanging out with us on social media at Parker Testa, at ESPN Shea Neal, at WWSU 1069. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you for hanging out with us. It's been an absolute blast, and looking forward to the rest of it. We say this at least once or twice a week, but looking forward to the rest of the summer. It's only been really a month since we started this show, but and we still have 2 more months to go with it. So I'm excited. I mean, feels like we're almost. It feels like we should be almost done, but we're just getting started.
Yeah, we are, and it's been a blast so far, and it's definitely been a grind for sure, but that's what we love about it, So we appreciate all of you out there listening, and all of your involvement with the show. We never would have expected this show to be as big of a hit as it's been, so we appreciate all of you.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And here, us at WWSU, we plan on grinding and we plan on working our butts off for the next year because we have a really good reward when we do. So just saying, that's something that we can't share yet because I don't want other people to get mad at me for doing it. But we have a very, very good reward coming. Parker knows what it is, and he knows it's going to be an absolute blast. So,
yeah.
In due time, other members of Wright State University, you will know.
Yes, you will. It's an award that we just kind of just came up with out of the blue after recording one night. But it's certainly one of the better ideas we've had, and certainly a really good way to take pride in what we've done for this year.
Absolutely. And I mean, we talked about our goal is to win Org of the Year, and it still is. But even if we don't win Org of the Year, there's a lot of really talented orgs on Wright State University's campus. But even if we don't win Org of the Year, we're 100 steps forward from where we were 6 months ago, and that's worthy enough to celebrate as is. And if we can be 100 steps forward next spring that we are right now, I mean, that's 200 steps forward, and that's a W in my book. I don't care if you're Org of the Year or not.
Right, and it's been a blast, and that's just a month in, so I can't wait to see what the next 11 months hold, as far as well, what we're going to continue to do, and like we keep saying, we're just getting started.
Yeah. All right. Any closing thoughts?
The Suns look really good. They really did, and this is one of the teams that I liked going in. I didn't really expect them to fare as well as they did against the Lakers because the Lakers were really good, but they held their own, and they won pretty convincingly tonight there in Phoenix, and they get off to a hot start here in this series, which I think they desperately needed.
They sure do, and I mean, right now, we talking Suns Hawks NBA Finals? No, just kidding. But I mean, the Suns do look like a team that could easily come out of the West. So I'm excited. I think all 4 teams left in the West all have a shot to get to the NBA Finals. Clippers, Jazz, Nuggets, and Suns. So I'm excited to see what the second round holds. And really all 4 teams in the East do as well. I mean, the Bucks could still claw back into the series. The Nets look like world beaters. The Sixers are the 1 seed, and the Hawks are playing really good basketball right now. So we're down to the final 8 for a reason, and these final 8 all have the potential to win a championship.
They do, and it's going to be fun going forward to see who prevails from each conference, and that's what this time of year is all about. Some NBA playoffs.
No doubt about it. We'll see everyone tomorrow, same time, 1 to 3, right here on WWSU 106.9 or our YouTube channel. But for Parker and Testa back in Noblesville, this is Shea Neal saying so long, thank you, and until next time, keep it real with Testa and Neal.